inundated is from the inside. And so that is by going to places like Campion College, by furnishing your own brain, and by going into the media and standing fast and realising that maybe short-term your career might do better if you go with the flow. But long-term you'll have more integrity and you'll be respected by the readers who are really the final arbiters, not your colleagues. So I think the best journalists are the ones who listen less to their colleagues and try to be fashionable among their colleagues than they do to the readers, because, you know, in Australia at least, I think my experience has been that the public really has a pretty acutely tuned moral compass, and most people believe the same things no matter what, you know, religion, or even if they're no religion. I think, you know, the vast majority of Australians are pretty sensible and pretty decent.
Hi Miranda, I love your talk, very inspirational, thanks very much for that. I was just wondering if you have any faith for the intergenerational change of the younger politicians going into our two major parties, or do you believe there'll be a rise in my political party because of the lack of cardinal virtues that you've talked about?
Look, that's a really good question, and one I've just been thinking about lately, which is that it seems that all over the West, since the baby boomer generation came to power, that there has been a real loss of confidence and a lack of leadership. And I think it's a generation. I really think that we're going to have a period of unrest and losing our way until your generation, I guess, Generation Y, comes to the fore, because they are you know, you guys are the ones who've borne the burden, you know, recently of, you're the ones who've been going to the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. You're the ones who've grown up having had the sort of moral foundations of their culture trashed by the, you know, 60s social revolution. And you're the ones who've seen firsthand the damage that's wrought in divorce and dysfunctional families, and you're the ones who are going to have to put it right again. And you know, I think Pope John Paul II saw great hope in your generation, and on university campuses, and you know, that was just the beginning, and the beginning of it. And now World Youth Day is the flowering of your generation, really, and giving you a new moral purpose. And it's there's some American sociologists who talk about this turning of the wheel, and so Generation Y is, they say, is very similar to what was called the greatest generation, which was the generation that, you know, the 1920s who went through, you know, depression and World War and so on, you know, grew up in the 1920s, and they had that great burden, but they rose to the challenge. They're now dying out, but they're what we think of as the sort of stoic old people who, you know, save electricity and so on. They were the original greenies. And I think your generation is, again, the greatest generation come again, and the challenges, I mean, I hope the challenges aren't as dire as they were for the previous 4 generations ago, greatest generation, but the way the world is looking now with, you know, the economy's collapsing all over the world, what's going on in the Middle East, it certainly does look like very uncertain times, and so I think the future will be in good hands with you guys, but you will certainly have challenges.
Miranda? Sir?
Oh, hi. Hi, Miranda. I follow your column quite regularly, and I was just wondering, the recent backlash you've copped from the way you've written about the perils of a fatherless society and the quite public persecution you've copped for it. I was just wondering how you personally stay strong in the face of such adversity in our society. Yeah, because it'd be pretty hard and you should be commended. I was just wondering how you stay so strong.
Thank you. Look, I was not all that surprised, but I guess it's because the backlash is so bizarre. You know, so many people who read the column, who I don't even know, wrote to me and said, I only read the column because I heard of the controversy, but I don't understand what people are objecting to. And so I guess that the moral framework that found that column so offensive and so appalling and so, hateful is so distant from my moral framework and the framework of everybody I know, and my friends and family, and that it really just strikes. It doesn't hurt me. It just strikes me as being ridiculous and out of touch, and a sort of a desperate attempt to shoot the messenger because they're losing the argument. And the argument that I put was just. It was basically a column about. It was after the London riots. I wrote, starting off saying that Penny Wong, who's a minister in the government, who's a lesbian, is having her partner is pregnant, so they're having a child together, and there was just all this politically correct, I thought, celebration in the media about it and on radio and so on. People saying how wonderful it was and what a great role model she was, and how this would be a real fantastic way of pushing gay marriage through the Labour Party conference, because the baby was going to be born at about the same time. I think it's December. And so I just wrote a very measured piece, because I didn't want to be horrible to Penny Wong and her partner and this poor baby that's been born. So I was at pains to say this is a cause of private celebration for them. But I just don't understand why the rest of us should act like this is, the most wonderful thing since the second coming. And then I said that we shouldn't be celebrating this kind of thing, because they've deliberately set out to remove the father from the equation, even though Penny Wong has said that the sperm donor will be known to the child. But what I said was that really is not about fatherhood, and that every child deserves, a mother and a father, if at all possible. And then I went on to talk about the riots in London, and saying that is, you only need to look at what happened in London to see the consequences of a fatherless society. So you had a lot of the people of the underclass and, that chaotic sort of family dysfunction that goes on. When mothers have multiple children and they're all on welfare, and it's just a disaster. Welfare state has taken over the role of the father, and this is not an original thought of mine. It's been talked about for a long time, and so this column which I thought unremarkable, was seized as a travesty, and that I had said that Penny Wong had caused the London riots. And people believed it, and even people who read the column were furious and apoplectic and said I was being homophobic and hate-mongering and so on. And I just think that the ferocity of the attack on me was meant to serve as a sort of a warning to other people who might possibly stick their head above the parapet and say that, well, actually, gay marriage is not such a great thing. And while people who are strong in their faith will continue to say that, it really probably did work in that it will have scared off just the average Joe on the street who doesn't think that gay marriage is great, and if asked to vote secretly, in a referendum or something, would tick the no box. But if put on the spot in a public situation, would say, oh yeah, why shouldn't it happen? It doesn't hurt. So I think it was the reaction, and I wrote another column about the reaction, because I think the reaction was instructive too. And I didn't take it personally, because I knew that the attacks on me were all part of this sort of political game. In the flow. But long term you'll have more integrity, and you'll be respected by the readers, who are really the final arbiters, not your colleagues. So I think the best journalists are the ones who listen less to their colleagues and try to be fashionable among their colleagues than they do to the readers, because in Australia at least, I think my experience has been that the public really has a pretty acutely tuned moral compass, and most people believe the same things no matter what religion, or even if they're no religion. I think the vast majority of Australians are pretty sensible and pretty decent.
Hi Miranda, I love your talk, very inspirational, thanks very much for that. I was just wondering if you have any faith for the intergenerational change of the younger politicians going into our two major parties, or do you believe there'll be a rise in my political party because of the lack of cardinal virtues that you've talked about?
Look, that's a really good question, and one I've just been thinking about lately, which is that it seems that all over the West, since the baby boomer generation came to power, that there has been a real loss of confidence and a lack of leadership. And I think it's a generation. I really think that we're going to have a period of unrest and losing our way until your generation, I guess, Generation Y, comes to the fore, because they are you guys are the ones who've borne the burden, recently of, you're the ones who've been going to the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. You're the ones who've grown up having had the sort of moral foundations of their culture trashed by the 60s social revolution. And you're the ones who've seen firsthand the damage that's wrought in divorce and dysfunctional families, and you're the ones who are going to have to put it right again. And I think Pope John Paul II saw great hope in your generation, and on university campuses, and that was just the beginning of it. And now World Youth Day is the flowering of your generation, really, and giving you a new moral purpose. And it's there's some American sociologists who talk about this turning of the wheel, and so Generation Y is, they say, is very similar to what was called the greatest generation, which was the generation that, the 1920s who went through, depression and World War and so on, grew up in the 1920s, and they had that great burden, but they rose to the challenge. They're now dying out, but they're what we think of as the sort of stoic old people who greenies. And I think your generation is again the greatest generation come again, and the challenges. I mean, I hope the challenges aren't as dire as they were for the previous 4 generations ago, greatest generation. But the way the world is looking now, with the economy's collapsing all over the world, what's going on in the Middle East, it certainly does look like very uncertain times. And so I think the future will be in good hands with you guys, but you will certainly have challenges.
Miranda? Sir?
Oh, hi, Miranda. I follow your column quite regularly, and I was just wondering, the recent backlash you've copped from the way you've written about the perils of a fatherless society and the quite public persecution you've copped for it. I was just wondering how you personally stay strong in the face of such adversity in our society. Because it'll be pretty hard and you should be commended. I was just wondering how you stay so strong.
Thank you. Look, I was not all that surprised, but I guess it's because the backlash is so bizarre. So many people who read the column, who I don't even know, wrote to me and said, I only read the column because I heard of the controversy, but I don't understand what people are objecting to. And so I guess that the moral framework that found that column so offensive and so appalling and so hateful is so distant from my moral framework and the framework of everybody I know, and my friends and family, and that it really just strikes. It doesn't hurt me. It just strikes me as being ridiculous and out of touch, and a sort of a desperate attempt to shoot the messenger because they're losing the argument. And the argument that I put was just. It was basically a column about. It was after the London riots. I wrote, starting off saying that Penny Wong, who's a minister in the government, who's a lesbian, is having her partner is pregnant, so they're having a child together. And there was just all this politically correct, I thought, celebration in the media about it and on radio and so on, people saying how wonderful it was. what a great role model she was, and how this would be a real fantastic way of pushing gay marriage through the Labour Party conference, because the baby was going to be born at about the same time. I think it's December. And so I just wrote a very measured piece, because I didn't want to be horrible to Penny Wong and her partner and this poor baby that's being born, you know. And by going into the media and standing fast and realising that maybe short term your career might do better if you go with the flow. But long term you'll have more integrity and you'll be respected by the readers, who are really the final arbiters, not your colleagues. So I think the best journalists are the ones who listen less to their colleagues and try to be fashionable among their colleagues than they do to the readers, because, you know, in Australia at least, I think my experience has been that the public really has a pretty acutely tuned moral compass, and most people believe the same things no matter what, you know, religion, or even if they know religion. I think, you know, the vast majority of Australians are pretty sensible and pretty decent.
Hi Miranda, I'd love your talk, very inspirational, thanks very much for that. I was just wondering if you have any faith for the intergenerational change of the younger politicians going into our two major parties, or do you believe there'll be a rise in neither political party because of the lack of cardinal virtues that you've talked about?
Look, that's a really good question, and one I've just been thinking about lately, which is that it seems that all over the West, since the baby boomer generation came to power, that there has been a real loss of confidence and a lack of leadership. And I think it's a generation. I really think that we're going to have a period of unrest and losing our way until your generation, I guess, Generation Y, comes to the fore, because they are you know, you guys are the ones who've borne the burden, you know, recently of, you're the ones who've been going to the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. You're the ones who've grown up having had the sort of moral foundations of their culture trashed by the, you know, 60s social revolution. And you're the ones who've seen firsthand the damage that's wrought in divorce and dysfunctional families, and you're the ones who are going to have to put it right again. And you know, I think Pope John Paul II saw great hope in your generation, and on university campuses, and you know, that was just the beginning of it. And now World Youth Day is the flowering of your generation, really, and giving you a new moral purpose. And it's there's some American sociologists who talk about this turning of the wheel, and so Generation Y is, they say, is very similar to what was called the greatest generation, which was the generation that, you know, the 1920s, who went through, you know, depression and World War and so on, you know, grew up in the 1920s.